Good to see you guys. Thanks for coming. So yeah, so today what I'm wanting to do is to do a bit of a recap on the process that we shared together with Future Self Now, and then to take you through a more précis look at the report, because you've all had the report and I've got quite a lot of detail in there, you know, some quotes from people and so on. But I'm just going to look at the sort of high level of that with you now. And then, yeah, the big questions about how to go forward, because, you know, there's all sorts of kind of ways of being and ways of working that can come out of this that hopefully might be something that ASP would like to look at and adopt going forward. So we'll look at those as well. So that's basically in a nutshell what we're going to be doing today.
Okay.
Yeah. So so I'll just go into sharing my screen. Dum, dum, dum. So yeah, so the big question obviously was, what could ASP become? And so the Future Self Now process is just one of 2 or 3 processes that are going on to look into this. And just actually to go back, I did sessions with members of the board and a couple of ex-members of the board to do some visualizations around this question. And the Future Self Now visualization is basically about kind of embodying our best selves, and in the sense of when it comes to organizations, the best self of the organization as well. So those of you who've been doing it, you've experienced this firsthand. But on the report that I sent out, I gave this quote from Eckhart Tolle, and it says in the middle there, it's up to each of us as individuals to embody, and I've just emphasized that, embody the state of aware presence that, and thus rise above the egoic mind and its dysfunction. So, and then he says, when a sufficient number of humans undergo this transformation, this will bring healing and sanity to our planet. So it's about a way of being. And with Future Self Now, we have the opportunity to really go into that kind of felt sense of, you know, who we are, what we want, and what we desire, and what we want for the planet, right? And so, so this is what I'm just saying here. Future Self Now is an embodying process, and that allows us to get into ways of being that truly make a difference, ways of being that are more heart-centered, inspired, effective, and sustainable. So so I thought what I would do right now, just because it's all very well me sort of telling people what it was, but you guys have all experienced it, so I'm just going to just stop the sharing there. So I just was hoping to find out from you what your experience of the process was and what you perhaps got out of it.
Do you want to start, Jagdish?
Yes, I could. Yes, I could. So for me, it is not since I have moved on the board that I've had such a long conversation focused on me and the speaker asking something or inquiring into something. I thought that there was some important listening going on, and while I have very clear ideas on what I think ASP could become, I was also looking to you in the exercise that is the end of report that we are doing now, and probably will take further, is what is emerging from the larger body. So if you could listen to me and evoke some thoughts and ideas, I thought this is something that nobody else has done. And if you've done that with 10 others, 8 others, 12 others, then I think we have a very robust process to pick out what is emerging. I also felt a nice connection with you. So you did it very well. I want to, once again say how grateful I am. And I'm a little kind of embarrassed, just two of us here. Is that it's not that just two are here. Many would have been here. It's just that sometimes this happens. But I don't want for a moment to underestimate or understate the significance of what has happened. So I think this was extremely, extremely valuable. And I don't know how I can really say it enough in words, because I could also feel that connection. And I think you were inspiring, you were tapping into some inner spaces, which is not easy to do on a Zoom call. So, thank you, really,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a process that really does get to our heart, and and so it is very special. And when we do that as a body, so ostensibly, as you're pointing to there, right, you could have 10 people come together to do a process like this, and you'd have 10 completely different points of view.
Yes.
But what's so fascinating I found through this work is that when I get together with a bunch of people here who've all got fundamentally, something that they're wanting to achieve together, then there is underlying everybody's thoughts and opinions, this sort of river of gold, if you like, that we can really tap into. And that's where we get the truth and the heartfelt knowing of, in this case, what ASP can become. And so this wonderful process, it starts off with the personal, where we find each person's personal future self, but then we ask that future self to take us to the future self of ASP in this case. And what happens is there's this massive, I always sort of very conservatively say it's like a 80% crossover. It's actually a lot more than that. It's more like 90%, 95% crossover in what people are seeing for the association. And so we have this beautiful then sort of agreement, as Gwyn was talking about, the hive mind, and we can really get to the bottom of that with this process without everybody having to sit around a conference table and sort of raising their hands and voting on stuff, and having lots of opinions. So it's just a lovely, gentle way into that river of gold. So yeah, and to the truth beyond, underneath it all.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, true. Very true.
Thanks, Jagdish.
Sorry, there's two parts of the process. There's a whole 3-stage process, of which this is one part of it. I was just very pleasantly surprised at how resonant this and harmonious this approach was, which I'd never experienced before, with the other 2 stages that are emerging. So the Wisdom Council and the culture survey, which Martin has sent out recently. And in a sense, it was very serendipitous, although in a sense it could be actually predicted, because these 3 ideas emerged from the hive mind and from this very different process of leadership that we are just naturally letting evolve. It's nothing like anything I've ever experienced. Even down at Embercombe, which is close to this, there's a structure and a process, and there's an aim. And what became clear to me through this process is that it's okay not to plan. Oh, hello, Mike. In fact, it's not just okay. Hi, Mike. Welcome. Hi. Theresa's just asking for Jagdish and my opinion on how the process went. So you're just in turn. Time for after me to join in. Yeah, it's not just okay not to plan. It's actually a real benefit for certain types of organizations. And as I keep repeating to people whenever I talk to them about ASP, we don't have any products to sell. We don't have any service to sell. We're just here for the members. And the people you interviewed are members. There's no difference in status. It's just they want to, have a different contribution. So it was just such a relief not to have to plan where we're going, not to think of and be creative about thinking that's where we're going to be in 5 years, but literally to experience it in the process, experience what it will become. Now, that was my self talking to me, so it doesn't necessarily mean that that's where ASP will be or where other people felt it would be. But I think, like Satish told us, there are 7 billion people on the planet, there are 7 billion truths. That was my truth. And as one of the leaders in ASP, and I work in my way and everyone else contributes in their ways, it was just such a relief to realize that this was a very good path to go. Not just for me, which is important, but for everyone around, it could be good for them. So it just made me realize that we can embrace whatever comes. We can be whatever we want to be. And for me, more importantly, especially what's happened the last 2 months, we can be there to witness and respond to what is happening, and we can change course if that's the right thing to do. And the right thing is what's right for future generations. So it allowed that really, it sounds a bit pompous, but that higher purpose to be our guiding light.
Yes, exactly.
And not our ego, as you've said earlier on, it's moving from ego to eco, as Otto Scharmer says. And this was probably the simplest way of allowing somebody to do that and to step into that space. So I could go on for another hour or so, but I'll leave it there for the moment because there's lots of other comments, I'm sure.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Mike, we are recording this, by the way. So do you want to go and comb your hair or change your jersey?
What are you saying?
Put the washing away in the background.
You look great, Mike, don't worry.
The hair is what it is. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I got carried away with cleaning that I've been putting off. So I've done all sorts of other things to avoid doing the cleaning, and then of course started a bit late and thought, oh shit, it's 5 o'clock.
No problem.
Or it's half time. So what was the question, Theresa? Was it just, how was it for you, kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. I just did just talked about the process very lightly, but I was, the best people to hear this from about, how the process went is from you guys who actually did it. So like what was your experience, and if there's anything come out of it for you?
So 2 questions there. How was my experience? My experience was that I always, one of the things I really, really value about ASP or kind of conversations and networks like these is that by making time for each other to have, you basically make time for reflection. And most of my life, probably in common with a lot of others, is spent doing stuff, whether it's mundane, walking the dog or doing the cleaning, or oh shit, I've got to get this done by then, and the builder needs that, whatever it is, just a bunch of tasks, a long list of tasks before I get to supper, and then I'm knackered and I go, I'm gonna collapse now, and I don't really want to have to think. so it was a wonderful opportunity. The experience for me, I really enjoyed it as an invitation to sink into a bit of reflection in a novel way. It was an enticing way. It was a lovely process because it was an invitation posed in a way that doesn't often come to you that way. So I enjoyed it. It was a lovely way of exploring, future selves and possibilities, I suppose. And the second part of your question was what has come of it, it's the old it's too early to tell, isn't it? Who someone said that, about the Napoleonic Wars or something like that, didn't they? I can't remember who it was. There's some sort of famous quote about too early to tell, centuries on. Was the French Revolution a success? Yeah, too early to tell. Don't know. I can't remember who the quote is by or what it's from, but it's along those lines. For me personally, on the particular stage of the journey that I'm on right now, it's rather yeah, I was going to say it's not inward focused, but it's well, I'm focused on jobs at hand, which are, you know, developing a house in Bristol and a house in Wales, and that's my reality at the moment. And part of so I suppose what's come of it. I don't know anything about anything necessarily new has come of it for me. I think it was more that the process reminded me perhaps how much a part of me this ASP journey is, and how much I am of it. And I do pay attention as best I can to the same things that I think, you know, we're all aspiring towards. Our motivations for being here and being involved are the ones that also drive me in my daily life. So I try to pay attention to them, and, you know, I've got an opportunity when I'm developing places to think about sustainability and so on, and mostly I'm just beating the crap out of my head against the brick walls of authorities and controls and, you know, all the million and one interests that kind of tend to interfere with the free flow of one's own will. all with the best possible intentions. And I think, interestingly, you know, if you look at the system you have to deal with to develop anything, it comes from utterly the wrong place. Not utterly, but the place it comes from is one of lack of trust and control instead of trust and freedom. And that's the big difference. It assumes that everything is going to happen for the worst unless we make sure it doesn't. And I think that the journey that we're on, or at least the way it is for me, is the assumption is that we come from a place of love and trust and faith and generosity, and you know what, that's phenomenally powerful. So much, you know, life is so much better and easier. And I'll stop. Sorry.
No, absolutely. I think that's so true, and I think that's what was beautiful about this process, is to see how much people agree with that. Right? Is that that's the stance to be coming from, and that's the embodiment, if you like, of that's what ASP wants to embody, is that love and trust and that sense of what's possible. So and it's to sort of get into the sort of the visceral sense of that, because, like you say, you can get so busy with life that here's an opportunity with Future Self to kind of remind ourselves about, you know, the why of everything, like the why of what we're doing, and the greater purpose, right? Because it can be just about getting from A to B, but it's actually we're operating inside of something that's much greater than that. And with Future Self, the Future Self of ASP and the Future Self of us personally, we get these opportunities, very nice, quick shorthand, if you like, for moving back into that space. So that's what's possible. So I'll what I'll do now is I'm going to just show you the report, and because we're recording this, we can sort of go through it a bit, and I'm going to get your help so that it's not just me speaking all the time. So but I do think it serves us to sort of have a look at it together, and just where was I here? I think so. So in the report, the first thing that I did was to just look at all the most common keywords that came out of everybody's visualizations when talking about ASP. And, you know, this is to give us a feel, the energy. You know, the energy is a thing that we're going to be aligning to in future, in order to really kind of be present to that why. It is a feeling place, and that's what you can, and when I was talking about embodiment earlier, that's what we're talking about. And so when these keywords are just ways of sort of touching in with all of that. So as you can see, there's some wonderful things in here, you know, fostering interconnection, generous, flexible, a lot along the lines of what you were saying, Mike. Light touch, that came up 2 or 3 times. Thriving, energizing, inclusive, diverse, hopeful, in flow, all of these, building on people's strengths, all of these things came up. So this is in my report, so you know, you can look back at that. And
Can I make an observation as well? I
yes,
love that.
do.
Lovely sort of tingle seeing that and going, oh yes, that's a wonderful expression of, you know, I feel very full, you know, I don't know what is it, fulfilled isn't the right word, but it's wonderful to see that as a reflection of the way that all the people that you spoke to have fed back. That's what comes out. That's so gratifying. Yes. The only one word, and I noticed it. I did the thing for oh gosh, the other thing for brands with values, today, which I thought was really interesting. And that word unique is the one that that I stumble over. I hope to God that we're not unique, because we need not to be.
Yes, unique may have been my shorthand. No, it was used. But in the sense that this is a way of operating that isn't at the moment, you know, pervasive, but yeah, hopefully, like you say, will be more so. But you ASP are the, you know, are the beacon for that, the lighthouse for that, for all of these things that we're looking at right now. And hopefully, like you say, in future, it won't be, it'll just become a common practice. But it could be that ASP are the lighthouse for that to begin with, right? It's like, oh yeah, this is the way, that's what people were sensing into, is like, this is the way that everyone can operate. But it is unique because, you know, not many people are doing it this way right now. So
I think can I just comment on that as well? Because if you can go back to that page.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm lazy. When I get a document like this, I speed read it, and the thing I cut out are the headings, which means you lose context completely. So I thought, oh yeah, this is where we are today. And then I read it, and it says, no, this is the future self.
All right.
I then started questioning, to what extent are we energizing or inclusive and diverse? And I think what came to my mind was that this is where we are after a journey of some 16 years through several different manifestations of directors and leaders. And it's like this compilation, it's this accumulation of good things that we're at. So, but it surprised me to see that where we could be in 5 years, which is what this represents in a sense, is largely very much an extension of what we're doing now, without any necessarily new words added. So I felt we're doing a lot of this now.
Yes.
But I think it would be interesting for anyone reading this report to ask themselves that question: how creative are we? How could we be more creative?
Right.
Are we being nurturing? To what extent? So it can be used not just as a page of statement, but a page of questions. What would we need to do to be really trusted? As Mike said, maybe what would we need to do to be unique? So, you know, when I sort of stopped being lazy and actually read the title, the page was very challenging and very heartening at the same time.
Yeah, this is what, you know, this is common for what everybody desires, right? This lives in everyone right now. So it is a reflection of right now in that sense. But in what we're seeing through the visualizations is that the ASP is really sort of truly embodying that in the big wide world. Do you know what I mean? Like anybody looking at ASP would say those things. Right now, that might be in the hearts and minds of the people, the members of ASP. But I think when future self ASP, you know, when you look at a future self ASP, that's like you say, it's just a sort of even more so, right? It's just there's a real you could easily describe future self as that, just by seeing by their sort of action, by your actions and deeds, and what's you know, what's going on and so on. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of more attention has been paid to it, is what you're highlighting there. Gwyn. But it already lives, yeah, and that's why you were able to touch in on it, because it already lives in all of you. Great. So so as I went through all the visualizations, the most common themes for ASP that people talked about was the structure and governance of Future Self ASP, about ASP providing community and forum, about ASP building credibility and attracting great people, and that the fact that Future Self ASP nurtures the individual and builds on their strengths. So those were the sort of most common themes for everyone. So I'll just go through them one by one. So maybe as you maybe just have a little look at that one, I've just put these all up. So global, intergenerational, inclusive and diverse, non-hierarchical, wisdom councils thriving, flexible, light touch, created by the energy that's drawn to it, so really informed by the energy that's coming its way, subgroups and networks being created and encouraged, that came up a lot, dynamic, running itself, that came up 2 or 3 times, the energy moving outwards and inwards, that came up a lot, and somebody described it like a beehive. So any thoughts on that? Just general high level.
Yeah, all of that is true to an amazing extent. And it wasn't true this time last year in the sense of the energy. We were dormant last year, we were hibernating.
Right.
And just as a simple metric, I try to post what people are doing on the website. And I normally post 1 or 2 a week. This week, I think I put up 8 new posts for what members are doing that I think is truly groundbreaking.
Right.
In the face of the challenges that are actually facing us. And what I'm also seeing is now there are little subgroups literally springing up overnight where members are creating commercial deals between themselves, or just supportive groups between themselves, and just giving each other the benefit of their different skills and passions, and that's over and above the formal structure of the intern team that we have, who are now up to 4 again. So it really is developing and thriving, and I think the beehive, I love that idea of lots of bees doing all sorts of things without any obvious coordination.
Yeah, great. So we're gonna rattle through this, because obviously, a lot of this is going to be up to the board and the Wisdom Council to kind of be discussing and so on. But this is just a sort of report in, really. But yeah, so this idea of building community and forum as a sort of category that people talked about. So the idea being there's wide spectrum of people across the world, all with the same common aim. This idea of the community being very youthful, but also benefiting from the energy of its elders, that very definitely came up. Sorry, and then lots of partnerships and relationships, nourished and continually expanding, that came up a lot, and that it's a platform for sharing wisdom, encouraging independent projects and advocacy. So I'm just going to, and it inspires loyalty, openness, passion, energy, and creativity. So you can really feel the energy. So it's really important to feel this sort of energy of all of this, right? And it's generous in spirit, like nature. Then, yeah, this idea of building credibility and attracting great people. So, it's built relationships and links with other organizations, universities, governments. So it's really, that's where it's building the credibility. And it's established itself as the primary forum in this field. And somebody said, if you want to truly prepare for sustainability and prepare people for tomorrow, you need to refer to ASP. So that's where it's got to, is that's what people say about ASP. If you want to truly prepare for sustainability and prepare people for tomorrow, then you need to refer to ASP. And it attracts people from all over the world and from all walks of life because it's inclusive, diverse, energetic, flowing, open, heart-focused, and encouraging of individual creativity. And it's attracting people, this is another quote from somebody, it's attracting people who are passionate, forward-looking, productive, positive, and dynamic. And then this idea of nurturing the individual and building on their strengths. So ASP encourages and nurtures individual creativity and self-expression. And again, a quote, ASP invites in the whole person, not just the corporate side, but the heart of each individual too. And that came up a lot, this idea of the heart, like really listening and encouraging the individual came up a lot. And ASP provides a context and support for members to pursue their own projects. And there's a lot of opportunity to learn, discover, build, but at the same time, there's no pressure, just flow and spaciousness. So, you know, this idea of light touch, flow, spaciousness, being agile, you know, flexible, again, that came up a lot. So, so I've given you like a whistle stop, but I don't know if you just want to quickly reflect on any of that before I turn to sort of looking at where we go from here.
I had a, may I? Yeah, I had a quick point to ask and make, and I don't know how feasible that be. So in the second last slide before you stop sharing, there were some very nice quotations, and the last as well. Now, these were kind of very well-formed, sharp quotes on what people expressed. And, you know, our tendency sometimes, and I'm asking this, is to pick out the sharper quotes because they stand out. I want to ask if there are broken strands, or if there are inarticulate quotations, or if there are some loose ends that didn't complete. Because see, I'm a journalist, so what you picked up is what I would pick up.
Yeah.
But over years, I've also realized a lot is said in what is not said well. Right. Or what is left unsaid. Yes. And if that is possible, I'm not saying you will be able to or you must, but if that is possible to, at a later date, add some broken strands to it, that these quotes were not articulate, but sometimes they bring out ideas that may be a little deeper sometimes than very well-formed quotations. It's a thought I have because I have seen that people who don't speak or who speak not very well, in my personal experience, that's my experience, sometimes have ideas that are richer, can be nurtured to their fulsome in much more richer ways. And we miss that because we're used to picking something that stands out. Okay. And I'm not saying it's there because you're speaking to a fairly eclectic meet, so everybody would have spoken well. But in case there is someone who lost a thought, who left a strand, I want to capture that as well.
Right. Yes. Well, there's two thoughts there. One is that because I was doing it one person at a time, and it was a very personal, intimate experience, you know, talking to their future self and then them going to the future self of ASP. I didn't experience anyone not being articulate. Nor did I experience many people going off on any kind of tangent. Do you know what I mean? Like that, and so obviously I picked those quotes because they most summarize what the quorum was. But you know, as I say, it's absolute. There's just there's so much there that is the same. What I can do is I've got all of the future self bits of the visualizations anonymously laid out, so I can, you know, send those out because nobody, you know, it's possible to do that, right, to so that people can see what everybody said. But I can't think off the top of my head there was anything in particular that was kind of off pitch to this. But
sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful. Sorry, Jag, just go on.
That's all. It was an observation that comes from what I have missed in life and I know I should pick up. So I wanted to put it on the table. That's it.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I certainly could go through it again and have another look to see those, because you're quite right. I was looking for commonalities, obviously, but yeah, it would be a fascinating thing to just have another little look.
I think that's a wonderful observation, Jagdish. And it's almost like, well, actually, the observations that we've made are sort of fixed, and we fix them in language, and it may have taken us years to fix them in language. And the very first time I really interacted with Mike was on the first walkie talk for me in Buckland Hall. And I remember sitting in the first day thinking, I don't have the vocabulary to even enter the conversations that I want to enter. So I was silent for a lot of those meetings. Well, by my standards anyway, yeah. So I wonder, this is a lovely question, is how many unfinished sentences, how many stumbling utterances would there be with our younger members of the community who are just embarking into this landscape of confusion and questions? You know, how many unfinished sentences would there be there, which are all invitations for learning processes? So wonderful. I'd never thought of that before, Jagdish. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Yeah.
And I have to say, just to, you know, the reason I like this process is because we're not in that situation, you know, where you're all gathered around a conference table and you're asking for everybody for their thoughts, and the quietest person in the room, or the most unorthodox in the person in the room, doesn't get to speak, or they can only speak in half sentences because, you know, the group is, or there's the loudest voice is having all the say. So by taking one person at a time and giving them this sort of intimate experience, everybody's getting to have their absolute full say. And that's what, and then the extraordinary thing is to see how much, and there's a lot, as I say, I would say 80–90% overlay there is with everyone. But the great thing is then everybody's engaged in it, everybody's bought into it, because everybody's had a full say in it.
I also agree. I really enjoyed your observation, and Jagdish, that's absolutely lovely, lovely intervention. What happened for me while you were talking us through those sort of collected observations was a sense of the kind of, it's the values made real. So I think there's something about the way, I think I'm not surprised really by what we've been discovering here, I don't think, because what I've noticed in people's engagements, and I suppose it's self-fulfilling, is that people are extremely authentic. They bring themselves into it and they walk the talk as best they can in the ways that they can. And I think that's really, really consistency been my experience over all the years we've been doing this. And I think that cumulative effect of authenticity is perhaps if there's a root, but perhaps the root of this sort of common sense of trusting, open, all those things that people have been saying. I think that's somewhere the source of our strength.
Absolutely, and that was my experience of having the privilege of talking to everybody. You know, is that you know, the openness, the love, the commitment, the honesty, it's like it's absolutely there. And this is absolutely, I would say, from an outsider's point of view, right? Well, insider now, but is you know, this commonality, right? That's the strength. And if you can and that's where the unique bit comes in, right? Is that, you know, running a whole association from there, because that is the collective thing of everybody, right? That's a collective way of being of everyone in it. It's very, very powerful. And a lot of this, right, we're going to look at it and we're going to say, oh, well, of course, right? Of course, that's who ASP is. Of course, that's who we are, right? But you know, but it's because of course that lives in you all, and it lives in us all. But it's like really shining the spotlight on it and saying, yeah, we can be unashamedly this, because this is, we've tuned into ourselves in a very authentic, heart-centered way, and this is, we can see there's like massive commonality around this. So if there's any doubt, this is our strength, as you say, Mike, which is very moving. Yeah, great. Anything else anybody wants to reflect on that before I move on? No. So I mean, obviously this report is there for anyone to see at any time, and to peruse at their leisure. I've done a real whistle stop there to give you an idea of what was coming out, and I'm sure you got a good sense of it. So I'm just going to share my screen again. The question going forward, obviously, for ASP, and you can have an eye on this for yourselves now that you've had the experience of experiencing your own future self, is how to carry on sort of aligning to this, right? How does ASP align to its future self, all the things that we've just highlighted, and how do you in some ways, right? So the big thing is energy resonance. So it's a wonderful segue to what Mike was just saying, is like it's lining up to the energy. You could feel the energy that was coming across from all of those keywords, from all of those statements that people were really tuning into. And so how the big questions are going to be, how do you align energetically to all of those things? Not head, not like let's have a project plan of 60,000 things to do, but like, how do we energetically promote all of these amazing things about ASP? Because if ASP can resonate energetically like this is what's going to have people come. This is going to have people sit up and notice. This is the thing that's going to have people inspired to act. So I'm going to bring up two things here. So when we are in that energy that we've just seen there, then you're in the energy of the solution, if you like. And what I mean by that is being in the energy of the thing that you want. So, you want this organization that provides all these amazing things for the world and for its for its members, and for all the people it influences. But in order to do that, we have to make sure that we're in the energy of that, in the energy of the possibility, in the energy of the why, if you like, in order to really attract that, the outcomes we want. And equally, this means that the energy that you're then coming from when you're in that energy is one of inspiration, not motivation. So I would suggest that the board will be really wanting in future, not only based on what I've done here with the future self, but obviously with all the other things, is to be like really, whenever it meets, whenever it's doing anything together, to be really inside, making sure it's inside of this energy, so that what comes out is one that is the stuff of inspiration, not motivation. Does that make sense? Thanks. So more thoughts about how you align, right, to this energy. So what you all experienced, for not just for yourselves personally, but also for ASP, was a sense of knowing, right? This wasn't wishful thinking, it wasn't project planning. This was your knowing about who you are and about who ASP is. And so that's kind of immutable. You can't really do any, that just is what it is. It's a wonderful, infinite truth. And so we need to kind of really keep reinforcing that. How do we do that? Well, then, we can, feeling yourselves in this, feeling yourselves inside of this ASP energy, this embodiment, as I was talking about right at the beginning. And one of the previous associations that I worked with, somebody in their future self visualization had this quote. So this is not from this one, but from a previous thing, but I just thought it was so true. they said the association found a way to change the culture of the model so that people could feel themselves in it rather than being in the mechanics or operating system of it. And that's what I'm definitely seeing as possible, is that, you know, the board can be encouraging people being in the feeling of this, inside of the possibility, inside of the why, however you want to put that. Those keywords, you know, like keep presencing those keywords, what they mean for people, feeling into those. You know, then some of you had really specific visions, you know, like you saw specific things, and some of them were metaphorical, and that doesn't matter, but those what I call future memories, and they're just really great ways of tuning back into the energy of, you know, what you're after here, of the future self ASP. And as I say, the more you're in that energy, the more you're going to attract the answers you want, the inspirations you want, the people coming your way, and so on. And any kind of visuals and touchstones that you can have to reinforce this kind of way of being, anything that brings it to life for people, and being in touch with your future self. So this on a personal level, right? You can be talking to your future self, but also it's okay to ask the future self of the organization. If you imagine the organization is a person, what would it say to you? This version, this future self ASP, what would it say to you? It's kind of nice way of looking at it, right? So any questions about that? I'm going to talk about how you do this as a group as well, some ideas for, you know, how, you know, some very sort of specifics you might do in a meeting or whatever, but just to check in and see if anybody's got any thoughts or questions about that.
A couple of thoughts struck me when you were going through that. One is that that quote is very challenging, because we around this table have all grown up in a very different culture, you know, in that corporate culture, which is the mechanistic operating system, is the hierarchical top-down command and control structure, which you are placed in and you struggle to exist. And what we've got is something totally different. And I think we can appreciate that because of our experience of the other. So it'd be interesting, because a lot of the younger people, you know, and I'm talking about people in their 20s and 30s, not just sort of 17, 18s, who have set up their own companies, aren't setting up companies with that old mechanistic operating system. You know, I was having a discussion with the wife just about clothes. You know, I don't visit companies that wear suits anymore. They just turn up like we are, because there's much more respect. So I think we've got to recognize that we are in a position of having seen alternatives and experienced them. So we're much more appreciative and sensitive to the difference. But for a young person coming in, it could be quite different. I've had one person say, well, you know, I just can't live with that informality within ASP. It's obviously not doing anything. And I say, yeah, you're right, it's not. So I think Mike gave us the key word there, is if we're going to allow this to emerge and evolve like this, we have to be authentic, because we can't give people the other experience. So we've just got to be faithful to what we believe is the right way to run it, and always be prepared to be honest and open about it, and not deviate to meet someone or try and persuade them it's more like what they want than it actually is. We've got to stick to this. And maybe that the touchstone is keep asking the future self, is what I'm saying being authentic to you? Are we getting towards you, or are we taking you away from it with that action or that misquote?
Yeah.
Just a thought. I won't hold you up any longer, but very briefly, as you building on exactly what you just said, I think that there's something at the heart of what we've been doing, which is based on a respect for that authenticity, a respect for nature as it is, a respect for we're required both to be authentic and respectful at the same time. I think otherwise I don't think you can do it without that.
But you see, it's easy because you know who Future Self ISP is, because you know what the feel of that is. Then being respectful and, sorry, I've forgotten the other word, but is easy, right? When you're in the energy of that, then the inspiration and the knowing what to do comes out of that. So this is kind of my point, is that when we're in the, it is all about that energy, and you don't need to worry about, are we being respectful, or are we being light touch and all the rest of it, because if you're really feeling the feelings, if you're really embodying this, then it just comes out of that, right? Because you're being, you're just being authentic, you're just being who you are, right?
Yeah, true. I just had a very quick reflection, if I may. So this is wonderful. I was wondering if hypothetically speaking, you were doing this exercise for us a year ago, when we were mostly dormant, or not as active, not really dormant, but not as active.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm asking myself, because I can't ask you, you weren't doing that then, and we can't ask for a gut feel. Maybe Mike and Gwen may have some inputs there. Do you think the future self would have emerged like this?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Yeah. I think, as I say, I think it's immutable. I think it's like infinite. I think it's like you could have been just two people in a garage, and it would have come out like this.
So there is no worry of a recency effect playing on this. That's my only
because
question.
this is hard. It doesn't, like, this is just who you are, right? It's authentic, and because it's come from each individual person. Again, it's not a group think. It's not everybody going for the lowest common denominator and just, let's just get it over and done with.
This is my gut feel as well. Yes. Yeah. I wonder what Mike and Gwen think of this.
It's a fascinating question, because my instinct would say, of course it wouldn't. But actually, the two things that I think, the two big movements that have happened over the last couple of years, is that Mike and I have stepped back, and all the RBP people have stepped forward. But whatever we were stepping away from, and Mike and I have come back in different relationships, it was there. It's what you came to, it's what we moved back from, and we've come back to it. So I was surprised by the absolute conviction of Theresa's body language. Of course it's there, because she's been through this many times before.
Yes, exactly.
And that's such a realization that ASP has always been there.
Yeah.
And just one more point. I remember when the second time we dissolved ASP, it was in a yurt at Green and Away, actually, where Resurgence is based. And a woman just turned around to me with tears in her eyes, saying, I don't want to live in a world without ASP. And yet she'd never been to an ASP meeting.
Right.
And I would think, how can you feel that? You've not been there. But she was sensing what you have just, with great conviction, said, has always been there,
will always be there. And you could argue will always be there, even if it dissolves. Do you know what I mean? Because it's there in your desires. It's there in your understanding of the world, the planet, what's needed. It's there. So even if it doesn't goes dormant for the next 10 years, so it's still there. So it's there to be lived into, should you choose to or not. But it's still there. The
phrase unconditional, followed by the word love, comes to mind.
Yeah, which is so great, isn't it? I mean, so now this just like makes it even easier to keep aligning to this, right? You can go away, like same with your own personal future self. You can go off and become, I don't know, some awful criminal, and you'll still come back. That who you are and your future self is who you are, is who you are, is who you are. And whether you align to that or not is your choice, right? But it's always going to be there. That's who you are. And it's the same with ASP, which is wonderful, right? So there's not a lot of, it takes the pressure off. Like, you don't have to kind of get it all done and,
liberating.
Just live into your knowing, right? This is why I'm saying this. So some thoughts about how, as a group, you know, the board, whatever, you know, just some ideas about how you can be thinking about the whole kind of future self idea as you go along. So, you know, but in advance, each person could be thinking about their future memory of ASP, for instance, just getting retuned into that. You might come up with a vision statement based on all of this, right? Like some kind of one-liner or something. You probably even have it, you know, because we know that this is already exists, but it's just anything that, you know, because there could be some work after this, right, in terms of all the findings you have, right? I'm sure will come up, something may well come out of that as a touchstone, like a vision statement. And just the feeling of your own personal future self, you know, like when you walk into things feeling your future self, the experience is very different. I would really invite you to try that. If you're going into a tricky meeting, go in as your future self, leave yourself behind having a bath, go in as your future self. And what happens is your shoulders go back, you become completely, you know, you can really align to who you really are. And it's a very wonderful experience. So do that. And then, you know, on the day of the meeting, say, I'm just giving this as an example, you know, you might presence the keywords again, you know, the vision statement, if you have one, some ideas, you know, what my future self really enjoys or loves about the new ASP, for instance. So like, just again, just ways of tuning into the ASP that is, but is the future self. Looking back today, to today, my future self says nostalgically, oh, I loved that meeting because, you know, we really sort of came together and we really, you know, and you could just make it up, right? But just get into the feeling, you're embodying, but, you know, future self loves every step of this journey. And isn't it great that? So there's a ton of these. I'm throwing them out there. You know, you know, if we wanted, we could do workshopping around this kind of thing. You know, there's all sorts of ways that I could help align ongoingly. But the big thing is to be sort of really getting in touch with future self ASP on a heart feeling level, right? So so I'm saying, if you can't feel it or embody it, how will the rest of the world? You know, like this is how you will make a difference, because you are going out there really feeling it, right? This is what inspires people, and you with that kind of knowing, it's the thing that really attracts the results and the people and the conversations that you want, right? So there's this whole idea that what you pay attention to grows. So, you know, by paying attention to the future self version of ASP and all that it represents, and enjoying that and loving that and nurturing that, you know, like being inside of that, that's what will grow and emanate outwards and make a big difference in the world. So just from what I can do, you know, some suggestions for how the future self work could come in with ASP if you wanted to. I'm certainly willing to, you know, pro bono do some quarterly check-ins perhaps with the board. I definitely would be on for doing discounted visualization and coaching calls to the ASP members. And just a cheeky, I have a book here, the Future Self Playbook, full of all the sort of tips and techniques for aligning to future self this is more personal level, but so I've just added that because I'm very proud of the fact that I've just put it up on Amazon. It's just gone up on Amazon. So yeah, so there you go. End of whistle stop tour, but I hope that gave you a feel for the report and what came across, and obviously, you know, a lot more can be done in the future if so wished.
Can I say thank? Oh, go on.
No, I just wanted to say how long have we got? Because I want to respect people's time, because we've been over the hour. But I'm happy to stay for another few minutes for more comment. I'm enjoying this immensely.
Yes, I mean, I've got another sort of 5-10 max probably. Yeah.
That suits me, because at the moment Liz is taking up the cleaning where I left off, and I'm feeling terribly
Oh,
guilty.
you might be in trouble.
I wanted to thank you enormously for all that you've brought to us already, and for running the process with us so generously, and doing the analysis and the thinking and the kind of sharing it back. And you know, what a wonderful gift. Thank you. And I have one small question, which we may not be able to answer very simply, but if you can, it would be wonderful. I'm just curious about your future self's view of your experience, your exchanges with ASP. You've made a lovely offer in here of all sorts of things. What does your future self see about as a result, or of all of this? And
Oh, it's just making me feel quite moved, actually. So, yeah, so she's very happy. She sees this as quite a turning point for me, because the thing that she's most passionate about, and I realize that I am passionate about, is to get this work out there as much as possible. So the turning point being that this is an opportunity for me to come in front of a lot of people at once, and where I've been doing, small workshops and one-on-ones, and I have done the odd thing for organizations, but ASP has been a sort of a whole nother level, and so she's absolutely thrilled. My future self is like, yeah, this is a turning point, not only on the level of working with larger groups and the sort of what that can lead to, and the wonderful people that I've already met. I mean, I've had some amazing connections, but also, yes, just on this level of getting future self out there. And she's made it very clear to me, and I'm really get it, that this is not about me making lots of money. It's just like, I would just want to get this out there because I do feel that it's something that's very special. And so, yeah, she's doing a little jig.
Thank you.
Good question, though. Yeah.
I want to say a big thank you, Theresa. I think there is a lot of potential in this work growing. I'd certainly personally like to welcome the offer of your continued engagement with ASP. I don't know how this works out with the majority of the board, but I think that'll be very valuable. And I think there is a lot of capacity to build this into a far more bigger offering to so many other people. I personally have been toying in India and never really got around to doing it because of my other work, of doing some deep listening in organizations to catch early governance violations. Because quite a few organizations go under, and people within the organization know what is happening, which doesn't reach the management or gets suppressed because of the fear of action that may follow. So
Right,
this
yeah.
could be a parallel governance thing, and yours is one level higher than that. Not only governance, but really building a future. So there's a lot of potential, I think. And I only wish you that you grow this and become the kind of a force because at the heart of it, it's deep listening,
Exactly,
empathizing,
yeah.
connecting, and which is missing in our world, which is a very sustainable work to do. At the heart of everything is listening to the planet, listening to ourselves,
Yes.
listening to the pain of others. This is lovely Gandhi song, which is the people of God are those who can feel the pain of others. And similarly feel the joy of others. So so it's so nice. I want to say a big thank you to you, and I wish we can build this a little more and also connect and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, that would be
I really
lovely.
care a lot for this work.
Yeah. I'm a big, I just feel that because this is about listening to ourselves so much, that's where we're going to, that's the level at which we can change the planet, is that it's not a coincidence that mental health is at its biggest crisis, as well as the planetary crisis. True. The toxicity in our own minds and so on, so we can get back with ourselves and be healing ourselves and be listening to ourselves. Once again, I do feel that has a big impact on the wider world
Yes.
and all the rest of it. So
Yes,
that's why
yes.
I've become very passionate about it, because I'm realizing I've been sort of gifted with something that needs to just get out there, and
Yes.
I'd love to be that person that starts
Yes.
to get
Yes.
that going. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, I just hear to what Mike and Jagdish have said and asked. Wonderful. It's been absolute pleasure being on this call. Just as I sometimes say, the fewer the people, the better the quality of the conversation, and this has been
Yes.
absolutely gold dust. We didn't answer or didn't address one big question, which is what
Yes.
do we do with the report? And I was going to suggest we don't do that here. I'm going to put a challenging question to that, because Mike's just asked, could he have a copy of this recording? An observation, I think this is what ASP is in action, what this conversation has been, and it's also what FSN is in action, due to the beautifully generous question that Mike asked you, Theresa.
Yes.
So for those people who haven't experienced what you do, they've just witnessed it.
Right.
And witnessed you doing it, which comes back to what Jagdish has said. This talk alone could be a wonderful advertisement for how this process can work, which all our members, I believe, would benefit from listening to, even if they don't understand it firsthand.
Yes, exactly.
So I would suggest that firstly, this recording was for the benefit of all the members who couldn't be here because they were otherwise engaged, so they can partake in the conversation. And secondly, I would add not just the report to the list of things we could send out to the full members, but also this video, because it's just such a valuable, rich resource. And we can take the answers to those questions offline. We don't need to delay you anymore here, because you've got another talk to go to.
Yep.
So big thanks to all three of you for being here today.
Yes, thank
Big
you.
thanks for Elizabeth for suggesting you in the first place.
Oh, it's just been
Wonderful.
such a pleasure, and I do hope I have a lot more to do with you in the future.
Sure.
It's
Certainly.
been
Certainly.
So
an
do we.
absolute pleasure and a privilege, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Mike.
very
Thank
much.
you, Gwen. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.